You there, Kristen? Those clips I sent, I think we'll start with the longer one. I think that may have been the second one I sent to you. Yeah, no, we'll skip on that until we discuss him. I don't think he's on our agenda today, but yeah, that one. And I think it starts right about, I give you a time, a duration, a clip there. Beautiful. Yeah, just right out of the intro, I think we're going to go with that. And it kind of sets up what we're about to discuss.
Before I speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Unless you want to do it.
No, that's fine.
I do have King of Hollywood from the Eagles.
Oh, yeah?
For Weinstein, when we
okay.
revisit the subject. Oh man, that track. I don't know if it was written for him, but it was written for somebody like him.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you.
Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
You know the thing.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power.
Who says politics isn't fun?
No, I know. Lunch Pail Joe. Yes, he won South Carolina and then he swept Super Tuesday. Well, he didn't sweep it, but he did much better than anybody ever thought.
Well, the expectations were so low.
Right.
That's all it was.
Yeah,
That's a marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a business model that you just lower your opposition's expectations, and then you come out and you're just flaming red hot, and that's what he did. That's how it looks to everybody, like he just got his act together.
For the first time in his career, he gave the best political speech of his career, according to all the Democrats on the cable news, and he won. He won states for the first time. How many times did he run for president?
3 times.
3 times.
This is his 3rd time. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He's never taken a state before.
Right. It's it's amazing. And he immediately got all these endorsements from the other candidates.
And the market has bounced in the wake of the Super Tuesday event. Was it Super Thursday or Super Tuesday?
I think it was.
Is it tomorrow or was it yesterday?
I think it happened yesterday. Yeah, so the market is bouncing. Well, that's good. I mean, my 401k was looking a lot better a few weeks ago, but it's coming back. It's coming back.
Well, there are a couple of factors for that. First of all, the Fed has now cut interest rates, short-term interest rates, by 50 basis points.
Yeah, but that's not going to help the supply chains.
No, but that's what the market is already factoring in.
Yeah.
Is why did you need to do that if things weren't already fine?
Right.
That the markets are very sensitive to these kinds of events, and they're not stupid people. So.
Yeah, but there are other corrections going on. The market was probably oversold to begin with.
Sure, and and then you have, of course, the Biden bounce, the expectation of him not doing well and then doing so well in the states. And I have another theory about that once we get into it, but I know you had some remarks already set up. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, shall we go over the list of the dead from the last weekend, the casualties?
Sure, I love doing that.
First of all, the candidate that dropped out before we even learned how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Pete Buttigieg,
Something like that.
Buttigieg,
Yeah.
butt plug.
Well, we talked about this quite a bit, that the media couldn't even pronounce his name properly. And
Right.
Trump and a handful of others had tried to give them some time to pronounce his name right. Buttigieg. He would slow it down for them because he was sick to death of hearing it mispronounced. I know I was.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then there were still people who could not pronounce his name.
Right. Which is not a good thing when you're trying to run for major office. But, it was not that he was gay that turned most people off to him. Hashtag CIA Pete, those photos of him in uniform in Afghanistan, they looked like Michael Dukakis riding a tank.
It really was revolting to look at, yeah.
And
it was a limousine driver, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's all he really was.
He had a desk job, and then if somebody needed to be driven around town.
But to him, when he bragged about it, it was like 112 excursions outside the gate.
Yeah, right. Where he was vulnerable to bombs.
Right.
To his credit.
But, his commission is called the Direct to Officer Commission. You don't have to go through officer training. You don't have to go through boot camp. It is simply a political plum for social climbers to get into and get an easy commission so they can put that on their resume later.
Yeah, exactly.
And he played it up like he was in great danger, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that certainly turned off, and people that have illusions of bravery are the most dangerous when they get into power. So, if Tulsi had been allowed in the debate, she would have finished him off like she almost did in the last debate she was in.
Which is why they didn't want her up there.
Right, exactly. And now that she's got one delegate from American Samoa, she reached the threshold for the last debate, but they're already going to move the goalposts. They're not going to let her in there.
Oh no, it's basically over there for them.
Right.
It's decided.
Yeah. So right after Super Tuesday, I saw her in C-SPAN in a forum in Detroit, and boy, the level of conversation was so much higher. One woman in the audience actually got up and referenced Washington's farewell address.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah. So and the fact that she draws from, not a lot. I mean, 2% of the vote at most, but she draws from people all over. I hope Tulsi, is going to stick around. If not, she may still campaign. We haven't heard from her yet, but she's just on a mission. She's on a mission to get her point across, and
right. And she has animus.
Right.
She's got a lawsuit, a defamation suit against Clinton. There's all kinds of things going on out there. This is a political landscape that is so much fun that I'm really sorry for people if they're not following it.
Yes.
Because there's so much going on and so much going forward right now. I mean,
Right.
this was an end of one chapter, but now all of the dynamics change again.
Maybe it was just the preface, and we're just getting into chapter 1.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, and
his selection for a running mate.
The early money is on that
The Georgia
candidate,
black woman.
Yeah, Stacey Adams. Or
yeah,
Stacey.
and she's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Is she?
Yes. Would you ever guess that?
No, but
I mean, they've really dropped their standards.
I dread looking at her photo on posters, though.
The CFR has really dropped its standards, and most of the good ones are now, they've bailed out. So.
Right.
Anyway, don't touch that dial.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
For America to back up on its feet and once again fight for the proposition that we hold these truths to be self-evident. Sounds corny. Not a joke. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. You know how we talk about it. Are we the people? Folks, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've never lived up to that. We've never lived up to that. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the words, never lived up to it. But we've never, ever before walked away from it.
Bird one. Is there some? Why is that corny to him? I don't.
It sounds corny. I know. It sounds corny.
His audience is corny.
Yes.
His audience is stupid. That's what it is. And I wanted to invert the media narrative on the outcome of last night's results by saying that I don't think that his constituency ever was going to vote for anybody else, for the most part. I mean, they were open probably for somebody. But
and they hesitated, and everybody's saying it's the last-minute voters that pushed them over the top.
Yeah, I mean, how many candidates did they have on that stage at one point? Over 20, right?
Well, I don't know about the early days. Maybe they had quite a few. 16 or 15 or 16.
But on this show, on Talking Truth to Power, we always said it was Biden's to lose. Mm-hmm. We had other scenarios that included Biden, but we always said that Biden was pretty much the guy to beat. Despite his gaffes, despite his incompetence, despite his globalism, despite his corruption, he was the guy to beat. And now the establishment, with a few phone calls, got some of his stage combatants out of the way.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Amy Cornpone went down, and but there were going to be demonstrations against her if she stayed in the race in Minnesota. There probably were over the weekend.
She would probably not have won. I don't know how that turned out. I know that Biden won.
Yes,
state, right?
He took it. Yeah, and Sanders came in second.
Right.
So she didn't win there.
And that says something about Sanders as well. There's some of these socialist states, what I describe as socialist states, Massachusetts, Maine, Minnesota, at least from the Democrat side of the aisle, they should have gone for Bernie.
Yes, but the thing is, maybe they're not so socialist, or they don't like to call themselves socialists.
Or did Bernie disgrace himself recently with all of his embrace of Fidel Castro and concrete communism, basically?
Right. Yeah, I think that played a lot into it, especially in Texas.
He miscalculated.
Right, especially in Texas. And then remember when somebody brought up a contradiction in the audience, and he said, "Oh, really? Oh, really?"
Yeah. That was at one of the debates.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he's thin-skinned too.
Oh, absolutely he is. He's an angry old man. I mean, I look at him as Stalin. I don't see any difference between. In fact, if you go back to some of the black and white footage of the era, I think Stalin kind of looks better than Bernie does.
Well, he was from
the imagery
younger. Yeah.
I don't mean his youthful appearance, but I just mean his demeanor.
Uncle Joe, they called him.
He comes across as being a nicer person, as far as those archived black and white imageries that we see. That I just don't see how Bernie could be considered very attractive, except for the fact that he throws around free stuff.
Yeah, that's what some biker-looking guy and that they interviewed said. Why are you voting for Bernie? He said, "Free stuff."
Yeah, free stuff. Let's be honest about it. He got the marijuana states. He got Utah, Colorado. What are some of the other?
California.
California, of course. So I mean, those are the people who are voting for him.
Right.
Free stuff.
Free stuff. Yep.
They're poorly educated. They come out of public schools. They could be in college or out of college, but they didn't get any education in those institutions because you and I know there's nothing being
right. There's no economics or even home economics.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. We'd be better off if they had home economics.
Yeah, I know. So and then Donna Brazile, she's the one that fed the debate questions to Hillary. Yeah. And now she's a pundit on Fox News.
And she had an interview, or she had a discourse with Rona McDaniel yesterday.
I think, the RNC spokesperson.
Who is Mitt Romney's niece.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh my gosh. Is this landscape really interesting or what?
It's also incestuous.
The head of the GOP is Mitt Romney's niece.
Okay.
Mitt Romney wouldn't have anything to do with Donald Trump.
No.
It's so interesting.
But she told Donna Brazile told her to shut the hell up for insinuating that the establishment was coming after Bernie.
And I'm thinking even the corporate establishment there at Fox had something to say about that. because that was really over the top.
Right, right.
I heard that. I was listening to it live online in my car, actually, when I just had to nearly pull over. Couldn't believe that. You don't see that kind of thing.
No.
But, it struck a nerve because she is a disgraced part of that DNC establishment.
Right, exactly. And, it'll be interesting. I don't know if any of the listeners are YouTubers out there, but you can get the Jimmy Dore show and Crystal Ball on the Hill show, and I'm be interesting to see how they react to the events of the last couple of days, because they're totally into Bernie and Tulsi, but into Bernie as well. So it'll be interesting to see what conspiracy theories or whatever they come up with.
Now, Biden has a problem, though.
He has more than one problem.
No, one big one.
Okay.
Two words.
What's his biggest problem?
2 words.
Himself?
Donald Trump.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's got 2 tasks. He's got to get to the nomination, and he's got to get there with a running mate, and then he has to beat Trump.
Right.
Those are tall orders.
Yeah, they are.
Now, as we talked about his running mate, but we haven't talked about one part of this that could really, and this is conspiratorial now, so brace yourself. The 25th Amendment.
I was thinking of that on the drive in today. Mm-hmm. I said, the guy is obviously cognitive impaired. He's starting to decline at any rate. And, I think his wife is going to be the president of the United States. I think Jill is. I think she wants it more than him in some ways. Did you see the way she protects him? I mean, I saw
she
her.
Does.
She bounced a heckler a week ago.
No, that was last night.
No, also a week ago. She went out in the audience and chased somebody out of the arena.
Oh.
And then last night when those anti-dairy activists jumped on the stage.
Yeah, vegans.
They weren't. I don't know if they were vegans. I guess they were, but they were, against the milk industry.
Yeah.
And they milked that demonstration.
They sure did.
Yeah. But she jumped in to protect them.
She was ready.
Yes.
But her payback from Biden, from Joe, was to introduce his sister as his wife. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was funny.
I don't have. Do we have that as a clip, Christian? But we need to get that one. That's a damn. Of course, it's all about the visual, isn't it?
Yes.
You'd have to be able to see that to have as much fun with it as we would like to.
Right. But he's made so many. I mean, gosh, you could make a comedy album if there were still albums. Biden thinks there are albums because he wants you to play the record player all night.
Yeah, that's right. As we pointed out here a little bit earlier. But you see, that 25th Amendment was introduced by Charles Percy, who was an in-law of the Rockefellers, because they wanted a way, thinking into the future, to bring Nelson Rockefeller to the Oval Office by bypassing...
As vice president. He was vice president, wasn't he?
Yes, but by bypassing the process of the election process. And that's what the 25th Amendment allows you to do. Jerry Ford was never elected by the American people.
That's true, yeah.
That's what the 25th Amendment would do. Now, who would be the most likely person, from a conspiratorial perspective, to seek that running mate position with Joe Biden, who's waiting in the wings? There's my first and only clue.
He's waiting in the wings.
Who is waiting in the wings?
Bloomberg?
Hillary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard that too.
So she gets to the Oval Office without a vote of the people.
He would pick her as vice president?
Oh, of course. They're all in. This is a deep state operation.
Okay.
The deep state is very, very entrenched into this process, and I see that happening. But the problem for Joe is what I mentioned earlier, Donald Trump. You have to win first. So what have they got up their sleeves? They've got Brennan, Clapper, and the entire deep state, thinking this through. They're spending overtime trying to figure out how they can vacate that seat so that...
Do you think Lindsey Graham will go ahead with the investigation on Hunter Biden and the Ukraine now?
Sure, it's taken him a long time to get up to speed, isn't it?
That's the thing. He promised investigations before that never materialized.
I think it was Limbaugh that suggested that he may have some entanglement with the Ukraine himself.
A lot of them do, but they're mostly Democrats that do.
Yeah.
Spooks and Democratic politicians, have been ripping off the Ukraine, and now they're getting called for it. But the prosecutor Shokin, he is facing a life or death pretty much situation there. He needs to get the truth out for his own sake as well as to expose Biden. So,
But the Ukraine has initiated an investigation against the Bidens now.
Yes, they have.
So that's going to be a difficult hurdle for him going into the election, the fall season of the election cycle that we're experiencing.
Do you think the Republicans will be deft enough to explain that this is what happens when you run an empire and you have satrapies and
Well, I hope so.
corruption and all this, or will they just point it as a partisan issue?
Well, I would like to think so, that the party has vacated the old shell. You know, the Bush shell and the McCain and the Doles and all that stuff is now gone, and we have a new party here. And it's inclusive. You know, we include libertarians like ourselves. And, you know, we're open to suggestion, but that's gone.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll be back, though, right after the break.
Home at Last opens doors to family, to freedom, to finally making it yours. Home at Last, a program of the...
This overload.
Shannon Lawson here. Join us for the Nevada Radio Roundup, Fridays at 2 p.m. A good news variety show all about the local scene. The Nevada Roundup, Friday at 2.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor. My co-host, Leland Faegre. We've been having a few chuckles over Lunch Pail Joe's victories. But now it's time to...
We're going to get it serious now?
Well, somewhat serious,
okay.
Yes. And as far as those of us who are non-interventionists, we had good news this week in that some kind of a peace deal has been signed with the Taliban in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And it appears that that long war may be over, although there are obstacles before we'll know for sure.
Well, though we sent some drones at them yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the ink wasn't even dry. Who would have seen this coming?
Yes.
Well, that's right. We were getting serious again.
Yeah, well, we have to be serious about this thing because it's life and
it's
death.
so ugly.
And all
19 years.
I know.
Of blood and treasure.
Mm-hmm. For what? Yeah. For nothing.
Nation building.
Who will be, as John Kerry once famously said, who will be the last one to die in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And so we, the Taliban, if you're not familiar with them, they are fundamentalists. Most people remember them for the destruction of the old statues in Afghanistan. They just destroyed the art, the culture there. They are against, women's rights, obviously. They are extremely, patriarchic. But they do fight Al Qaeda. Contrary to what Americans might think, they're not affiliated with Al Qaeda at all.
Americans think they're all the same.
Right.
They're not.
No.
There's factions.
Right. And they were always more of a domestic faction. And, they harbored Osama bin Laden when he was over there, but they did start a negotiation with Bush that said, show us some proof of his involvement in 9/11 and we'll turn him over to you. And Bush just ignored that, and we went into Afghanistan to capture him.
The worst mistake ever in the history of this country.
Well, even more than Iraq. I mean, they were both big mistakes. And because, we just stayed in there to nation build, and we have a conflicting, the army is running around nation building, and meanwhile the CIA is over there nation destroying.
Yeah.
It's just typical government at odds with each other. Mm-hmm. And while we were trying to tell the Afghanis we were their friends, the CIA would come in and murder people, and the drones are CIA. They would be murdering Afghanistan wedding parties and all of that. So
yeah,
it's terrible. Now the reports are that
you can't give those people anything to do. Is basically the solution. The
yeah.
CIA, just put them out of business.
I know
they've done nothing but destroy wherever they went since it was created in 1947.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That is the deep state right there.
Yep.
And Bloody Gina's in charge of it now. And every time she makes a move, you got to wonder what nefarious thing is coming down the bend, around the corner.
Now? Yeah.
Now, the reports are that the Secretary of State Pompeo, that Trump had to really twist his arm to go over there, and he refused to actually sign the treaty.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is...
what was the source of that, by the way? I saw that...
I'm not sure what the source is. I didn't write down what the source was, but I'm sorry, but...
Well, no, I mean, just...
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I think. I'm just wondering where that came from, because something like that shouldn't have even leaked out.
Right.
You know. So...
Well, I remember during the Obama administration when Russia in December, they intervened in Syria upon Assad's request, you know. They intervened in the fall of 2015, and in December of 2015, they had resolutions passed at the UN that declared Assad was the legitimate ruler of Syria, and that anybody that was fighting him was an outlaw, not a freedom fighter. And our UN ambassador at the time, she refused to sign those UN agreements. She had some subordinates sign them. So it's not the first time that we've seen this from America. We can be very petulant, you know. It's amazing that a superpower can be that,
fickle?
Petty.
Yeah,
petty is, but we do a lot of petty things, actually.
We do.
Yes. So, and then the drug war in Afghanistan, the Taliban actually is the one fighting against the drugs, the opium. They don't agree with that, for the most part. I mean, I've heard that they also traffic in it sometimes, but they also fight it. The thing is, it's I've been reading veterans from Afghanistan, and you know, actually our efforts to fight the drug war are really just to go after the competition that the main drug lords were associated with the government and
make it easier for them.
Yes, exactly. Eliminate the competition, Al Capone style. Yeah, so. You know, and then, you know, of course, our allies over there, the Northern Alliance, they had that practice of enslaving boys to be sex slaves for them and so on. That ritual that
good stuff.
We had to turn away had to hold our nose supposedly in order to be their ally. And Afghanistan is horrible, and let's just hope that this somehow sticks and that we don't stay in the Bagram Air Base. We don't need to be over there at all. We don't need to have a force over there. Let them handle their own problems. If we really, really, really have to, we can do a strike from the Indian Ocean or something. You know, we don't have to have a physical presence there. And it's really just to keep the great game going, you know, between, again, it comes down to Eurasia. Who controls Eurasia? It's Zbigniew Brzezinski and the people before him.
His legacy, yeah.
Yes. So, and part of it is also because, Xinjiang province in China is right on the border with Afghanistan. That's where the Uyghurs are. And we don't really know what's going on with China and the Uyghurs, folks. Let's face it, we've been hearing a lot of different things. And like Donald Trump said, these hackers could be some fat guy on his, living in the basement, with a computer on his bed or something, because...
Or at Langley.
Yeah. No, but I mean, some of these people, like Bellingcat and the expert on Afghanistan, they're just people that consolidate the news until they get a government grant, and then all of a sudden they become official sources.
And they have a narrative that everybody spins.
Yeah, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is another one, although they've been somewhat impartial lately. But so there is a dispensationalist Christian that has been named, I don't have his name in front of me, as being the source of a lot of the information on the Uyghurs. And even if they did make them make some of them shave their beards and go into re-education camp, we're very naive about what is going on with these imams. I mean, they Wahhabis, the radical imams, they infiltrate these mosques. Sometimes they even kill the current imam somehow, off him, or at least push him out. Send them packing.
Did you say off him?
Off him, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's, the same thing happened in Russia.
You really got that CIA parlance going for you.
Well, I mean, we've
been around, haven't you?
Yeah, we've seen it happen all the time, and so if they're making some of them shave their beards and go to re-education camps, it's because they really are afraid of jihadis in that province. And I mean, if they are doing these things, they're nothing compared to the bombing and killing that we've been doing against the jihadis. So but at any rate, China is also pouring billions into the development of that province. It's a big tourist attraction. The Uyghur culture is different from the rest of the culture in China, and it draws a lot of tourists to come watch them and their cultural, plays and so on, and dances, and so it's just overblown from my point of view. And we do know that Turkey, this could be a sequel. This could bleed into the last segment, but
could it?
Yeah. Turkey we know Turkey has imported at least 5,000 Uyghur jihadis into Syria, and that is well known.
I think they must have had help to do that. Yeah.
Well, the Uyghurs are Turkmen. They're part of the big caliphate that
but they had
Erdogan wants to consolidate.
But they had to come a great distance.
Yes.
So
yeah.
There has to have been some logistical help there somewhere.
Yes. But at any rate, he got them. I don't know the exact route he took, but I know that there's a pass in the mountains called the Taurus Mountains. It's 100 miles long, this pass, the Sicilian Pass it's called. And that's how Turkey was able to pour these jihadis into Syria between 2011 and 2015, at any rate, when Russia intervened. And that used to be, that plain on the Syrian side of the pass used to be part of Syria, and it was stolen from them after World War I, the Sykes-Picot Treaty that divided up the Middle East between France and England, essentially, ceded that to Turkey. So that's what has facilitated Turkey's involvement in Syria. So,
well, that's a very unholy alliance that Putin-Erdogan.
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
I mean, but they're making the best of it.
Right. I mean,
arms deals and everything.
They both need each other.
Yeah,
they don't like each other, but they both need each other.
Yeah.
And because for Putin, the alternatives to Erdogan are worse. I mean, we tried to assassinate Erdogan so we could get some CIA, EU guys in there, NATO guys. So he doesn't want Erdogan to go. We'll be back.
Howdy, Shannon Lawson here. When my family wants real barbecue, it's chili, rib tips, and sweet potato fries. It's the Butcher's Kitchen Barbecue, 7689.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre. And so, my 401k was looking a lot better just a few weeks ago.
Everyone's was.
Yeah, but it's starting to come back up, thankfully. The markets have been...
you know what it is, don't you?
No, what is it?
It's that Biden bounce. He's good for markets.
Yes. But anyway, anybody but Bernie, I guess, for the stock market.
Absolutely right.
But with the virus, we have seen now that the numbers are starting to decline in China, but they are picking up in the rest of the world. But there's been a lot of information that we just haven't been getting about this whole process. Now, some of it was initially from China. They've been somewhat more transparent, and it looks like, their fascist system responded rather quickly after the initial confusion.
They built hospitals in
a couple of weeks,
yeah.
I know.
I mean, you talk about efficiency. Those
right, no environmental impact statements.
Those
have to go
belligerent regimes, they really know how to get things done.
Just like Bloomberg. You know?
Exactly like Bloomberg.
So
just like Bloomberg.
So in Korea, has quite a few cases. They have drive-through testing centers where you can pull up in your car and get tested, and they don't charge
drive-through
anybody.
Testing?
Yes, drive-through testing. Leave it to the Koreans.
I tell you.
Yeah, and but in America, we're bogged down in red tape. I mean, everybody is talking about it, and nobody seems to know what the answer is. And the reason is that we've, despite what Bernie says, we've already got too much government involved in health care.
Yeah, Bernie doesn't know that.
No, he thinks we should have a lot more. Crowd the private sector out.
The DMV of health systems.
Yes, and the private companies are more than willing to try to take this on, but they're being held back by the CDC. The first test the CDC sent out there, as I understand it, they were too complicated. They were not only showing coronavirus, but they were getting other positives in there based on other kinds of flus, so they didn't work. And then,
And there are, stop me if I'm wrong, but aren't there 2 strains of the COVID-19 virus now?
You may be right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, 2. I think China has identified a second strain of it, so that's going to complicate the issue as well.
Now, complications. Again, there have been rumors that people can be reinfected, but the others are denying it. So we don't really know everything that we would like to know about it, but it's causing a lot of people to panic already. And actually, it's for the most part, it's not. I don't see why, as a disease, it should really affect production as much as it has, because young workers are rarely going to be, very sick from it or prove fatal to the people of working age. It's mostly getting people 50 or over. I've seen one thing where it said that people that are in their 80s have a 15% mortality rate, and then in their 70s it drops down to 8%, and then it keeps dropping down until children are not even being infected.
But it's that on-time delivery and supply chain phenomenon that is affected by this sort of thing, and that's why the market has responded the way it has.
Right. Apple claims that they're back up and running.
Yeah. So. And some of the weeders apparently are in place there. Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, that's who's taken over their shops.
They imported Uyghurs
to
take over the Apple production?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I saw that somewhere.
And again, we don't know if it's primarily affecting Asians. It may have been exclusively Asians until it hit Iran, and Iran is, somewhat Asian, I'm sure, in their genetic makeup. They came...
But don't they also have extraordinary business ties as well?
Oh, yes.
So that's probably where
And it was their holy place, because we were remarking, when the Qam is one of the holy shrines in Iran, and the Shia, apparently they lick...
You're not going to say they're licking the same statues, are you?
They are. That's what they do. I've seen the videos of it. They actually lick the walls of the statues in the mosque there.
Well, your explanation is as good as anybody's.
Yes.
I just have trouble with that image is all. Oh, my gosh.
And then the supreme leader supposedly got infected, and of course he's in a high-risk category. I'm sure he's in his 80s, right? But I'm sure he's getting the best of medical care. And our sanctions are making it rough on the Iranian people to get medicine, to get the hospitals that don't have what they need. So, it's just a mess the way we get involved with these things, because if our sanctions are keeping the Iranian response down, then who knows where it will spread out of Iran. Mm-hmm. So it's these things are never good. These types of interference in the natural order that we use by using state force, they don't work out. They never come back well.
Well, if there's good news, it is that we are rethinking this whole idea of foreign supply chain sources, so that we can do it all here as the framers intended, We can trade if we choose to, but not because it's part of that globalist design, which is what it was intended to do. It was meant to entangle. Global trade was meant to entangle.
No, I don't think so.
Yes, as part of its grand vision of a political entanglement, they began, as Kissinger said, NAFTA was the architecture of the New World Order. So it wasn't about
Yeah, but you
trade.
don't have to have the political entanglement.
You don't need treaties to trade.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
And you don't. And I don't buy that we wanted to be autarkic.
Who do you mean? What do you mean by we?
The founders.
Oh no.
The Americans.
No,
we didn't intend to be autarkic.
No, but it would have precluded this outcome in this episode of human history had we had our own sources as part of the supply chain rather than foreign sources for manufacturing.
Right, but on the other hand, that's what keeps trade and that being dependent on another country is what keeps which is the reason why trade is so conducive to peace. As Bastiat said,
right.
When goods don't cross the borders,
We don't
armies,
go to war. Yeah.
Armies will.
Right.
So we some sort
All
of
I'm saying
mutual
is-
dependence is important.
Well, the word dependence is not a good word in any event. It's independence. we want.
Interdependence.
But so we really need to we need to rethink this process and choose deliberately and conscientiously how much part of this manufacturing alliance we need. How much entanglement do we need? Because this is what got us into this mess here. And it's what's affecting the stock markets right now, is this entanglement.
Well, you can look at it that way, but on the other hand, I mean, the thing is that you really can't stop the capital flow like you would think you can.
It's not about stopping it as so much as having the choice of where to go for it.
Uh-huh.
And we could have had our own source of that supply chain so that we could immediately disentangle until this process goes away, takes care of itself.
Yeah, but how would you know what to stockpile? How would you know what things that we need so much that we have to do it here, even though it can be done cheaper somewhere else?
Well, this is where we have to rethink this whole thing. We've never been here before, so it's a subject that we need to consider because that's what got us to this point.
Right. But, we keep hearing on this Gordon Chang guy keeps coming on Fox. And
I like him.
He's the only one, though.
Yeah.
They don't bring anybody else on except maybe on the Fox Business Channel that contradict what he's saying. He's saying that he finished up one segment by saying that China abhors us. I don't think China hates us. Do you think China hates us?
Well, that's a good question. It's somewhere in between you're in our way and hate. It's more like you're in our way, I think.
Well,
they don't like the United States to have that leadership role in our interactions with them.
Well, but Russia doesn't like that either. It's about
he probably
sovereignty and the fact that every nations should be basically equal and respect each other's sovereignty, type of thing. And the idea that China is building itself up militarily to conquer the world is
no, they
fantastic.
were doing that. They were doing that.
Yeah, but they're not going to conquer the world.
No, they're not. It's not going to be next week or next year. But that was their long-term goal, and still is. They won't let go of that.
To conquer the world?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
They have never been that in their history.
Well, I know you've never accepted this understanding, but Michael Pillsbury says the same thing. Gordon Chang says the same thing. Leland Faegre says the same thing. We believe that their long-term goal is to become the hegemonic leader in this grand design of a new world order. Now, they're not going to get there without the resistance that obviously Trump has brought forward. It's fantasy, but that's what their long run.
If everybody was afraid of China, why are the Philippines kicking us out?
Who says they're afraid of them? I don't mean fear. There's no fear in Tang.
The Philippines are kicking us out. They would rather deal with China than deal with America.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah,
they're entangled.
Because they're not a military threat.
Well, to them, they're not a military threat.
No, yeah. And they're not a military threat really to anybody.
Not at this point.
They tried to invade Vietnam, and that didn't work out very well.
I think it's all about the vision that they have, not about the immediate logistics of our discussion. Speaking of that discussion.
Yes, I
Boy.
think we have to come back.
Boy, did that go quickly. I guess time flies when you're having fun. Join us again next week for another edition of Talking Truth to Power.
There was someone on the front end of that spot said, I think we're too stupid or something like that. It was very funny.